everybody, and welcome to Passing Priority. I'm Jacob Van Loon, and I'm being joined by Kevin Jones, Brad Bonin, and the Gerard Fabiano. This week, we're going to be talking about Legacy. We've talked about Modern for the last few weeks. Legacy is the format of this week, though. There's some big Legacy tournaments coming up. If you're going out to Seattle, you're going to play a Legacy Grand Prix. We just had a pretty big Legacy event. Well, it was a team event.
Yep.
But some big things happened in Legacy, specifically about Grixis Delver. So we're going to be talking about that quite a bit. We're going to start with our top decking segment. This is where we talk about decks and we decide whether or not those decks are trash or treasure in their given format.
And we have two Team Grand Prix coming up.
Yeah.
Toronto and I believe DC. Columbus is limited, but DC and Toronto, I believe, are both team constructed. So there'll be Legacy there, and that's within the next 2 months.
Yeah.
One in April, I believe, one in May.
Yeah, Toronto's in May. I don't
Toronto's
know
in May?
Yeah, Toronto's in May.
I think DC is even later in the summer.
No, it's before that, I believe.
There's an SCG in DC.
Okay, all right, SCG.
SCG,
Yeah, same thing. So
Yeah.
Jake's 100% right. A lot of Legacy coming up.
Yeah, and one of the big things about Legacy, if you don't play a lot, it might behoove you to learn Legacy and to get better at Legacy in the very near future. With a lot of these Team Grand Prix coming up, with a PPQ season that is actually team constructed coming up,
Yep.
the most sought after Magic players to be teamed with will be strong Legacy players. So if you're able to get reasonably good at playing Legacy in a couple months, then you could find yourself with a pair of teammates who might be significantly better than you, and you give yourself a really good chance to qualify for the Pro Tour simply by becoming that Legacy head and players seeking you out because of your skill in that format.
Jake, can you explain how it works for the RPTQ? So say, for example, if Kevin won a PPTQ for the team series, and he wants to play with, let's say, Brad and yourself, do you both have to be qualified, or can Kevin just bring anybody?
Yeah.
He can just bring his crew.
Okay, so if you're really good at Legacy, Kevin's probably looking at the Legacy guy, and
I've actually just
Jake.
qualified already because I'm silver.
Okay, awesome.
So I can bring my crew, and I have a crew already. Too.
Okay, who's your crew?
Harlan Führer and Ethan Gajewski.
Awesome. All right,
So
yeah, and
that's going to be sweet.
the other big Legacy tournaments that they have every week is the Legacy Challenge of Magic Online.
Yep.
And I have a good story for that for story time. So
You do have a good story.
I do. I really do.
That's pretty rough. I'm sorry. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Grixis Delver. This deck was everywhere last weekend. It seemed to be the only Legacy deck that anybody played. Let's talk about this deck for a second. Do you think the deck's too good? Do you think it's not good? Are you going to be crazy?
So I spoke to someone who told me that their opinion, and they played the deck, and they won. It was actually Joe Burnell who won the Legacy Open, or the Team Open, in the Legacy seat. And he said that he thought it was tier 0, meaning that it was better than everything else. It was the only deck that you could defensively play in Legacy. It was that good. I think that it's really good. It has a lot of staying power through the mid-game. Delver decks have known to, be a little weak and not threat dense, and if they can't close the game out early in true tempo style, they struggle to win. This deck has multiple copies of True Name Nemesis, it plays 2, as opposed to 1 or 0, which the other decks play, which allows it to win games where the opponent did curve a spot removal and interaction, and usually when they do that, you just beat Delver. Historically, that's been the way to beat Delver, is by curving interaction and by sweepers and stuff like that. So now I think that it's much harder to beat this deck, and it has a really high threat density with respect to past Delver decks. And I think that it's absolutely treasure, hands down, probably the best Delver deck that has ever existed in Legacy, aside from the Treasure Cruise Gitaxi Pro Blue-Red deck, because that deck was truly just broken in half. But yeah, Treasure
Kevin won the Legacy Championship with that deck.
2 main deck Pyroblast. That's how broken that format was.
What's your take? Grixis Delver.
Alright, so Delver's the best deck in Legacy, but I don't think it's tier 0. Tier 0 means that there's no defensible way to attack the deck. And we see that these Blue-Eyed Miracles decks and things like that, if you can blank Wasteland and Daze in the early game, and then you can play a Supreme Verdict, you can beat Delver pretty easily. The problem is that those cards don't lend themselves to any particular powerful strategy.
Else, yeah.
So it's hard to beat Delver and the rest of the field. But in my mind, when you say tier 0, I think something with Skull Clamp, that it doesn't matter what your opponent's doing. It's unbeatable. I think Delver's within the confines of Legacy. I don't think it's pushing too far.
All right, Gerard.
Yeah, I'm on Brad's side. I think the deck is, of course, a good deck. But the whole thing is that when you're playing Delver and you match up against 4-color control or check pile, you're at a very large disadvantage. I played in the Legacy Challenge and I easily beat, I want to say, 3 Delver decks, and it just felt like I could never lose. You don't want to play into their dazes. You want to take the more cautious line where you're not going to get bolted out or Deathrite Shamaned out. And if you take those lines and you have cards like Baleful Strix, Pyroblast, just cheap removal in general, you're going to have a good matchup against a Delver deck. So Delver's good, but it's not insane or anything. If you're planning on playing Grixis Delver, you should learn how to play the mirror match, and you should try to have some strategy against the 4-color decks or against like Miracles or just blue-white control, like Brad was saying, where they're going to have Supreme Verdicts, they're going to have Swords to Plowshares, and when you do face against those decks, your matchups aren't that great. So overall, I don't think it's that great of a deck. I think it's good, but even against some of the combo decks, sometimes they could just beat you. Do you have a favorable matchup against combo? Yes, you do. But sometimes you play against elves and you just are too slow, or you have a turn 1 Delver type draw where they're already trying to go off on turn 2 or 3. So that's my take on it.
Right, so I think we're all in agreement that the deck is treasure.
Yeah.
But different degrees of treasure from all 3 people there. Earlier this week, I was reached out to by, I'm not going to say their name, but somebody who's
Never
done
mention any
very
names.
well at large legacy events in the past, and they said that they were going to Seattle, and they were wondering what I thought they should play in Legacy. And I did not respond for 2 days, because I had other stuff going on in life, and then I did respond, and I said, you should play Check Pile. You should play 4-color control. And they responded, no, I've decided now, I'm playing Grixis Delver. I've been told that it is the best deck, and there's no other deck worth playing. And I was like, doesn't it lose to the 4-color like deck, though, the Check Pile? And the person said, I don't know.
Plus Jake doesn't really like that guy. That's why he made him wait 2 days to respond.
That's not true.
But no, yeah, I'm
He
joking
didn't
around.
respond to me at all once I
Well,
messaged him.
we know where you stand on the Jake ladder. But regardless, I do agree with Jake that the 4-color control deck, I would play 4-color control against Delver any day of the week. Any challengers out there that want to challenge me, you could bring your Delver deck. I'll bring my 4-color control deck, and I don't think you'll have a chance. So
I'm going to
this
agree with Gerard.
is actually an open challenge out there for anybody who wants to
I mean,
accept.
you can't just build a deck that has 4 Delver secrets, and besides that, it's just like
Sneak
the
and show it
names
for
and
Delver.
there.
Turn 1 Delver, flip revealing Dark Ritual.
All right, so the next deck we're going to talk about, we already started talking about it, Check Pile. Now, people are talking about Delver being too good. Here's a deck that attacks Delver and is also just a very strong deck in its own right. What's your take on Check Pile?
I think it's pretty good. I think that I used to be a big fan of Stoneblade decks, and I think the slightly slower than Delver blue deck is now Stoneblade is not really good anymore. It's now Check Pile is that deck. I think that the deck is very strong. I worry that it is the deck that is the most high variance with regards to Deathrite Shaman though. I think it's a deck that's way worse when Deathrite Shaman is not in play / doesn't live. Because the Delver deck has other cheap threats. It has Pyromancer draws. The Check Pile deck has such a high mana curve with respect to the format of Legacy for a fair deck that I think that it's just really reliant on Deathrite Shaman living. And I think that the Sultai deck that's Check Pile without red, it's the same thing. That deck is the same way. There was even a deck that Reduke won a GP with last year where he played Noble Hierarch
Leobug.
in a mid-range Sultai deck because he realized how important taking back the play and all the dynamics that the Deathrite Shaman creates were, so that he actually just played 8 of them, but then that deck just flooded too much because it had 30 mana sources in it. But whatever. But basically I think that Check Pile is still treasure, but it's tough because it does a lot of things to beat Delver, and it pulls itself in a lot of different directions and is struggling to beat the combo decks because it tries so hard to beat the other fair decks, I guess. So I think it's treasure, but I wouldn't play it. I would just play Delver, I guess.
Right.
I think that Check Pile is great if you build it correctly, and it can be atrocious if you build it wrong. And I think that the margin for error on the deck is unbelievably low. I was testing it a bunch 6 months ago, and I had a build that had Badlands Bayou in it that was atrocious. And every time I would draw a hand that was Badlands Ponder, Deathrite, I'd play a Deathrite, I'd get Wastelanded and bolted, and I'd lose the game on the spot. If your mana base is not perfect, or you're casting ambitious spells like Abrupt Decay without the mana base to support it, or Maelstrom Pulse is your only answer to Gurmag Angler, you just get laughed out of the room. But if you tune it perfectly, it's probably the best deck. So, it's the same as a control deck in every format. If you get it on the head, it's great. And if you guess the wrong metagame, you're going to get rolled.
I think that
But I agree with his. It's extremely reliant on death rate.
people get very greedy with this deck. When at the Legacy Open in Worcester a few weeks ago, I played against a check pile deck that contained in the main deck both Dak Fade-In, Grove of the Burnwellows, and Punishing Fire.
Okay, that's a different deck. That's Grixis Thieves.
No, he also had Rise Fall in his deck.
Yeah.
And Deathrite.
That's a different deck, though. That's
Oh.
Grixis Thieves.
Oh, okay.
That deck shouldn't have Leovold in it.
No, he Leovold in it.
Okay, well then he just threw Leovold in. But that's a different deck that's trying to leverage, like, Life and Alone,
Very
Punishing Fire, and Dak Fade
No,
to
those-
put back cards you don't want.
None of that stuff was in there. Just
Dak?
It just looked like check pile with Dak Fade-In and Punishing Fire.
That's
But that's the
actually all of the cards he said
Yeah,
except
yeah,
one
yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
And you said none of that stuff.
Well, no, Leovold was in there. No Loams were in there. Like it
Maybe the
wasn't
Loams are in the
really
board.
Weird.
But, like,
Maybe you didn't see Loam in game 1 and then he sided them out.
Maybe he certainly had Leovold in his
But
deck.
that deck is a
Right,
different deck. That's Grixis Thieves, because it's got too many Grove of the Burnwells for your, like, full fetch mana base to support
Okay.
all of the spells in check. Like,
Kevin,
there's no way that deck is
maybe-
Diabolic Edict.
Maybe he just had the Leovold sleeves and he played a morph.
No, he had. he also had Diabolic Edict. It was weird.
Okay, well.
And Rise Fall, which is a strange card, but was really good against me. I don't know.
It's like a bad Hymn to Turok.
It was kind
yeah,
of
and
cool.
him's legal, so.
Drug.
All
Check pile.
Well, I'm definitely not as extreme as Brad is, where it's like it's either insane or terrible, depending how you build it.
I don't know if you got the voice right on that one. But.
I tried, sorry, Brad. Regardless, I played it last weekend in Legacy Challenge. It was the first time that I actually played it on Magic Online, and I thought the deck was amazing. I don't know if it was check pile per se. It was the more 4-color control list, very close to Thomas Edevolson, who got second place at the Team Grand Prix. Preordain is very, very good in the deck. I'm not sure what you're saying with the, if you don't have an answer to the Gurmag Angler, you're playing 4 Baleful Strix. So I feel with 4
Okay.
Baleful Strix and Kolaghan's Command to get those back.
When I was playing, it only had 2 streaks.
Okay,
This
yeah.
is a while
The
ago.
4 Baleful Strix were like the best cards in the deck. They're blue cards for forcible, so you can always pitch it against the combo decks. But at the end of the day, they're the number 1 card against the Delver decks because it's just like their Delver just doesn't do anything. It replaces itself. Just overall, I thought the deck was amazing. I thought Preordain was great in the deck. I played 2 Toxic Deluge in the sideboard. I had a field day. Round 1, I beat Death of Taxes. And I want to say round 3, I beat Elves. So it was like just, easy cleaning. And the deck was great. The sideboard was really good. I mean, you're able to hang with the combo decks. For game 1, I believe I had 3 Thoughtseizes, 3 Hemp-to-Toroks, and 4 Force of Wills. So you're obviously able to get like a Thoughtseize Hem type draw, or you could always, Thoughtseize, know what they have going on, and then save your Force of Will when you really need it. And then after sideboard, you're bringing in Surgical Extractions, you're bringing in Pyroblast, you're bringing in Flusterstorm. I think the deck is great. That's the number 1 deck. If I were to go to Seattle, I would definitely play the 4-color control deck. And for the foreseeable future, that's the deck that I plan on playing. For any Team Grand Prix, come to Team Pro Tour, say if I'm the one that's going to play Legacy, I'll probably play that deck, to be honest. That's how much I like it right now.
I worry about the closing speed of the deck, and I think that I'm also a fan of the check pile deck. Like in the abstract, it's a deck I like to play, and it's the deck I probably should have played at the Worcester Open, but I just played Stoneblade because I can do whatever I want with my life.
It closes out pretty quick, especially after board when you have Chandra.
I just play like 2 Tarmogoyfs in my deck. If I
Yeah.
played it.
No,
Tarmogoyf
that's
doesn't
right.
do what the
No.
other 58 cards are trying
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Just pile.
For the deck that I played, I had no green cards in the main deck. The only
No
green,
level.
I'm sorry, 2 Levels.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the only other green card in my sideboard was Abrupt Decay.
Mhm.
But between Snapcaster, Leovold, Baleful Strix, Jace, you're really able to close out the game quick because all of a sudden they just have nothing. They have no hand. You're able to
Did
deal
you
with
play
it.
Liliana?
Liliana of the Veil or Liliana of the
Last
Lesser.
up.
I did not play Liliana of the Lesser.
You played Chandra Torch of Defiance
In
though,
the
right?
sideboard,
Yeah,
it was
that's
very
really good.
Chandra was so good that it's like you almost want Chandra main deck. I'm not even kidding. That's how good it was.
The format just can't answer it. They can't abrupt decay.
Yep.
They can't pyroblast it. Like,
Yeah, I had Chandra against Elves, and that was like pretty comical.
yeah.
My opponent with the Punishing Fires had Chandra in his deck.
Yeah, I literally went turn 3 Leovold, turn 4 Chandra, and Leovold is so good against the Elf deck.
Yeah, they can't glimpse ever.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I actually thought seize them after I had Leovold in play. Their hand was just 2 glimpses, and I was like, I don't even want to take. I want my 2 life back.
Yeah.
If I could take my 2 life back, that would be good. So, But
That's
overall,
funny.
I love the deck, and I think it's a very strong deck. And I think that if you are interested in playing 4-color control, you could talk to Gerard Fabiano at GFabs5.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So, as I said earlier, this is the deck that I suggested to my friend that he
Yeah.
play in Legacy. I think earlier we talked about Grixis Delver and that maybe being the best deck. But when I look at Check Pile, that deck looks really strong to me, and it looks like it's good against the Delver deck too. Like looks like it's a good matchup for the Check Pile deck. And I feel like when you're looking at these two decks, the difference is that the Delver deck is probably slightly better against combo strategies. Maybe even a significant portion,
Mhm.
like a significant percentage rather, better against the combo strategies, while the Check Pile deck is better against the Delver deck. And considering we're talking about a format where it's becoming more and more ubiquitous to be playing against Delver, like round in, round out, we're going to find ourselves in situations where maybe having a good Delver matchup is more important than beating the combo deck.
Yeah, and also Check Pile or 4-color control is better against like decks like Death and Taxes. It's better against like decks like
That's so true.
Elves.
Yeah.
So
And you don't actually like lose points against the decks that Delver can already never beat. Like your lands matchup couldn't get any worse than Delver anyway, so you're not really missing out there either.
yeah, like
It's
you-
not
you're-
marginally better with Delver than it is with Pile.
No, it's slightly better with Pile because like
Yeah, I
at least
think
you
it's
have two
slightly better.
diabolic edicts.
Yeah, I
And
think
Jace.
I think it's slightly better with Pile too.
I mean, if the lands player is good, the Jace should not matter. It should get Molten
Yeah,
Vortex,
yeah.
Punishing, Fired Out, or they should just be making the 2020 end step. So Jace shouldn't really have text unless you need to close the game.
Well,
with their
the one
Hellbent,
thing
but
is like if you have Jace in your deck and Wasteland in your deck, you can make them.
the
like,
check pile builds, at least most of them
don't have
played
Wastelands anymore.
Yeah,
I don't play the decks.
I
that
played-
have
It's too
Wastelands.
greedy.
Yeah, I played no Wasteland, and I never really wanted Wasteland.
Uh-huh.
Even against Elves, I was like, oh, they played a Gyvus Cradle. Do I want Wasteland?
No,
I
you
did
kill all the
that.
guys.
Yeah, I didn't even really want Wasteland. I only played one Diabolic Edict, but against a deck like Lands, the matchup is still kind of rough. Against Dredge game 1, the matchup is still kind of rough.
Mhm.
So I kind of agree with Brad's take where by you playing Check Pile, the decks that you already have a tough matchup against is not like it maybe goes from like 45, I mean like a 35% matchup to like a 33% matchup or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's negligible.
Yeah.
So.
that's pretty. That's a pretty good point.
So far, 2 good decks.
Yeah.
What's the third one?
The third deck we're going to talk about is Show and Tell. When I did coverage in Santa Clara, this seemed to be the most popular Legacy deck, and that wasn't too long ago. That was maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah, two months, a little bit more.
Yeah, and since then, I see significantly less people talking about it. Is that just kind of a result of Delver becoming so popular and Delver having a strong matchup, or is that just because of some other extraneous circumstance?
Well-
And do you think this deck is good right now?
I think there's a bit of a phenomenon regarding legacy players, where they will like to stick with a deck. They'll often play either the best deck or they'll play their deck like forever. And I don't think that Show and Tell really facilitates like depth to the legacy format with regard to like your own personal experience. So I think that people who play Show and Tell are inclined to like graduate from it, I guess is the best way to describe it. Or pick it for like one tournament and, play it here and there. But I think that the vast majority of dedicated legacy players will just play either like a different combo deck like Storm that has like a steeper mastery curve, or will just play like some random fair deck like Delver or Pile, Miracles or whatever. I don't think
reasonable.
people,
So I'm gonna like hold you
No,
a little
you're
bit
good.
accountable on that statement because in Santa Clara this was a deck where it was played by
Oh, this is like
what's the
Huey's
guy's
Huey.
name of the
Huey's go-to deck, I think.
well
also,
yeah, Huey
but-
played it, but even more so than Huey, there's that guy who he's top 4 the Magic Online Championship twice. He's queued for it
I know
3
who he
times.
is.
That European guy.
Yeah.
He's
It
played,
was, it was
some-
actually the same guy that messaged Jake, but he didn't want to mention any names, so we're not going to mention this guy's name also.
Okay, but this guy is like some European guy, and he's played
Is it
some
wise?
number of 5 figures legacy matches on
Yeah.
Magic Online, and his Magic Online constructed rating is over 2K, and this is some European dude who was recruited to be brought onto a team, and his team ended up top 4 in the GP.
Is it Malamujo or whatever?
No,
I'm
that doesn't
okay.
play.
I'm not gonna I'll find out the name later and I'll
Yeah,
post it on the
Yeah.
thread. But
yeah.
if that guy chose to play this deck,
It probably
there's
means
no
it's
way
good,
that this
right?
is a deck where you graduate
Yeah.
from it. This dude has tens of thousands, actual tens of thousands of matches under his belt, and he brings that deck to war.
I would.
I think that's a pretty big sign.
I
that,
would
like it's good.
I would hazard that to guess that he might have tens of thousands of matches under his belt, but I would say under 10% of them are with the show and tell.
I'm going to cut in here. Kevin, I think you're just wrong. 90% of show and tell players that I know are like dedicated show and tell players. They don't graduate at all. The show and tell players I see graduate are the people who are floundering around in the format, pick show and tell, don't like it, and move on.
Yeah, those people. I agree.
But those people are going to
I'm
do that with any deck they pick up, and they usually do that 5 or 6 times. They're just looking for an easy deck with a low barrier to entry, and it turns out that 2 volcanic islands and about 50 hours of practice is the threshold to be competent by casting a spell that puts in an Emrakul.
All right. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before.
Kevin, you've never been wrong before.
I don't know. I just think that I don't see a lot of people play this deck at all.
I'm gonna.
That's
weird.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like it kind of just fell off the face of the earth. So do you think it's trash now? Is this going to be your first trash of the weekend or of the week?
I don't think it's very good.
I hope
Harlan
it's the
lost to it.
weekend.
Harlan lost to it over the weekend, but they had Omniscience, and like that changes things slightly. I feel.
So they were an Omni show deck.
Most of the builds have like.
What does
at least one
Omniscience
Omni
really
main.
change? I mean, if they go show and tell and they put an Emrakul in, is Harlan going to beat the Emrakul?
Well, yeah,
If
Harlan
he
had
has
Diabolic Edict in his hand, and the guy
Baleful
put
Strix
Omniscience
also.
into play.
In that one case scenario, maybe.
And cast the Emrakul, and Harlan's like, trigger on this deck Diabolic Edict, and the guy is like, do all these things, have a free counterspell in my hand.
Well, there
kill
are
you.
also Delver draws or check pile draws where you have like Baleful Strix and 6 extraneous permanents. Where if they put in an Omniscience and take an extra turn and play a free Grizzlebrand, that's much better than playing something that's going to trade with your Strix and eat your board.
Most of the time, regardless of the build, either Omniscience or Sneak and Show, at the end of the day, if they're able to resolve show and tell, you're normally in a bit of a bind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
sometimes-
generally agree with that. I think that it wins the game the vast majority of the time.
Yes.
But I think that a format like Legacy is conducive to being defined by small edges, and I think the small edges do occasionally matter.
Well, the whole thing is that if Harlan knew what was going on, all right, instead of him having a Diabolic Edict in his hand, if he just had, let's say, like Mana Leak or
Well,
Counterspell.
he had like Red Blast and stuff too, but I'm just saying like you're never not going to board Diabolic Edict in against Show and Tell, and the X% of the time when you Diabolic Edict they have Omniscience instead of whatever else they have, you lose, which makes like the deck better against that specific matchup.
If your opponent, if you know your opponent's playing the Omniscience version, are you still boarding a Diabolic Edict?
I think you have to.
Okay.
It depends on what garbage is in your deck.
I think
that
that's
you're
the whole
cutting.
point and why Omniscience is good is because you can't not board the Diabolic Edict in
All right.
anyway. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna cut in here.
Trash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trash from
All
Kevin.
right. First trash of the day.
So, I
Not
actually
sorry, show and tell
can't
players.
tell if this deck is trash or treasure because I don't see it played enough. But I think that the reason that it's disappeared is twofold. One, I know is true, is just that the Rise of Delver has made it less like equitable to pick Sneak and Show as your deck of choice for a given weekend. But the other thing is that I think people are just trying to play a combo deck that beats Delver. So people have switched to like Ant, Tess, or even like Black Red Reanimator. They just need something that is faster. They need something that beats Delver, or at least tries to beat up on Delver.
Yeah, I like the Black Red Reanimator deck.
Show and
So
Tell
I
is
think
good
that the
against
combo
lands,
players, yeah, because you have Blood Moon.
right? Yeah. Also, you can just kill them before like.
Yeah, well, you have to have a sneak attack, but yeah.
Oh, because
I've lost to so many Chancellor of the Annex.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It's not fun to lose to that.
I had a game yesterday where I kept turn 1 Caracas, and my opponent just made a Chancellor of the NX and a Grizzlebrand, and he was just at 3, and he beat me 4 times with the Chancellor, and it's like, didn't draw swords. Just couldn't kill it.
Whack.
I was like, this isn't, I can't bounce this, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Gerard, Sneak and Show.
All right, so before I start, I have a question for Jake because Jake's one of the most famous commentators out there, does a great job. Why is it that every single time Sneak and Show is on camera, regardless of who's doing commentary, they always make the joke, "What did you bring to school?"
Oh, it's because it's a classroom.
Do people make that joke?
Yeah.
Yes, they do,
What
yes.
did you bring to class? It's because on the card Show and Tell, it's
I
like a
understand.
classroom at the Tellurian Academy.
Yeah.
I understand.
It's
And then
I don't think
and
I've
tell.
ever said that.
And then the other
For what it's
commentator
worth.
you-
Maybe the other commentator
yes,
has
and then
said
the
that.
other commentator usually responds, "My daddy's a fireman."
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
I don't know what
I
you're
don't
talking
know.
about.
Yeah, I don't know that second part.
Okay,
but
all right.
Yeah,
Well,
this is one thing I've experienced.
go
but
back.
If it does happen,
Yeah, go back and watch the.
Usually it's
yeah.
like, what did you bring to school? I brought an Emrakul. Oh, you brought a volcanic island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Regardless.
then they cast Jason. It's like woohoo.
No, but
All right.
Nobody's
so
ever that
overall,
good.
in all seriousness, I think that the Show and Tell deck is a powerful deck, obviously, because you're able to just get down on a turn 1 Emrakul, which many decks probably cannot deal with unless they're playing something like Innocent Blood. You
Yeah.
know, like the
Smallpox.
deck. Yeah. Actually, Alan Jackson in the last team tournament that I played with him, he was actually playing a Smallpox type deck where he would be like Dark Ritual, Dotsie's
Yeah.
Hem, or whatever.
The last
the
time
case
I
may-
played against
may be.
Smallpox, my keep had Deathrite, Fetch Land, Force Blue card, and I passed, and my opponent went Island, Dark Ritual, Thoughtseize, Hero Force of Will, Smallpox you.
How did he play Island Dark Ritual?
Swamp, Dark Ritual. And yeah, I just had 2 cards in hand and no cards in play. And I was like, oh.
Alright.
I love this.
Well, Pox is good. If you guys are wondering,
Yeah.
Pox is good, but in reality, don't play it.
No,
You'll,
it's not good.
Yeah,
Reed
it's really not
used
that
to
good.
play Pox. Did
Yeah,
Reed top
Reed used to play
Invitational
Pox.
Yeah,
Pox?
So
That's
if
great.
we're talking about the
That's
sneak and
Reed
show,
being good.
yeah,
That's not Pox being good.
yeah. If we're talking about like sneak and show matchup against Pox, I'm not sure who's going to win. But in general, the sneak and show deck is pretty good. But I don't think that I would recommend playing the sneak and show deck. To be honest, if you want a combo deck, I would lean more towards the Black Red Reanimator deck, or something like the Epic Storm. I was even playing a lot of Time Spiral on Magic Online. And High Tide Time Spiral type deck, and that deck was a lot of fun to play. And it was cool.
That deck is cool.
Yeah, it really is. But overall, I feel that Sneak and Show could go to a tournament and come first place if you get the right matchups. But overall, I think it's kind of a high variance deck. If you are going to play the deck to lower the variance, I think playing like 2 main deck Jace is pretty good. If you could main deck Blood Moon, that's also pretty good. But I'm going to say it's trash. I'm going to say don't play it right now.
All right. Question
So-
for you, Jake.
Yeah.
Preordain or Gataxian Probe?
I think that in what deck?
In
It's
Sneak.
and Show. It's normally
Sneak
4
and Show?
Ponder, 4 Brainstorm.
And then one of the other 2.
Yeah.
Okay, in Sneak and Show, I prefer Gitaxian Probe
Okay.
because I want to see what's going on.
You want to see
Like, I wanna-
when you
You wanna
cast
know if
show
you
and
can
tell
jam?
what
Yeah.
they're going to put in, right?
Yeah. I want to know what's going on. You know what
Okay.
I mean? I don't want to like cast my show and tell and have them put like an O-ring into players. Something
Okay.
wacky,
So-
Yeah.
I have an interesting thought. And usually when I say this, I say something really dumb and everybody gets mad. But I promise you this is interesting. Do you think that is it possible that playing Gataxian Probe like overall hurts your win rate with show and tell? Because like you might just objectively be like you're supposed to just go for it on turn 1 every single time that you can. So that like
Well, it still reduces the variance by letting you play a 56 card deck, even if you're supposed to
sure,
always jam.
but you could play Preordain instead.
But Preordain costs mana.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that it's possible that
Preordain is definitely a more like powerful spell in
Yeah.
some ways. Like I think in the raw aspect, Preordain is actually a better card than Ponder.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could probably talk about that. For
I agree
hours.
with you. I like
I
Preordain
think-
a lot more
I
than I,
think
like
like
Ponder.
I've played with decks that play 4 Ponder and 4 Preordain, and Preordain is a better card than Ponder.
Yeah.
I think Preordain is better in non-Delver fair deck.
Exactly.
I've been-
Well,
Yes.
well, the whole thing. The only reason why you want Ponder over Preordain is the fact that it could help you flip Delver,
Mhm.
or you might want Ponder if you're playing a card like Predict.
Yeah.
But overall, if you're not playing Predict or you're not playing Delver, I would much rather play Preordain.
Well, if you're playing
Absolutely
like
agree.
We
A
can talk about
combo
this. We can talk about this when we get to Miracles.
where you
actually,
need
so.
to dig to a combo, I think Ponder is still better because it sees more cards.
It doesn't see more cards.
It does.
It does not.
sees 4 cards versus 3.
How does it see 4?
Well, if
I
you
can
shuffle,
do
you're
that.
saying.
You see 3, you don't like them, and you shuffle.
But it
them,
doesn't
and
show
fourth
you
card.
the 4th one.
Yeah, it doesn't show you the 4th.
Yeah, but you still get to see a 4th card.
That is true.
That's fair. Yeah,
That-
Preordain
yeah.
only
Like
shows
if
you
you
that's
three.
did, I played Splinter Twin in Modern when
But
those cards were
Preordain
legal.
keeps the 2 bad cards on the bottom.
Preordain
Yeah.
wasn't legal.
They were both legal at the same time in the Pro Tour.
Oh,
My
the
deck had
PT1 in Philly.
4 Ponder
Yeah.
and 4 Preordain
But-
in it.
Okay.
But
And-
Kevin, Brad makes a good point.
Preordain
You do
keeps
keep
the
the
bad
bad
cards
cards on the
gone.
bottom. So technically, I don't know if you see an extra card if you're gonna get.
Yeah, because Ponder shuffles in the 3 chaff cards that you already saw back
Yeah.
into the mix.
But if you're shooting to hit your combo piece that turn,
Sure,
you
then
get
getting
one
the
deeper.
look.
Yeah,
yeah.
that
So
was
you-
basically what I was saying.
If
Okay.
you need to hit an Exacxi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
So
and
in-
combo decks
okay.
sometimes need
Okay.
to hit their
Yeah.
combo piece in a given window.
Yeah. No,
Alright.
I can buy that.
And that's my argument.
So
Okay.
I think we're ready for the next
I
deck.
said something smart.
Yeah, no.
Alright,
Alright,
let's
roll
go.
it.
That was good.
Before I mess it up. Hit
Alright,
it, cut
so-
it, print it, go.
The next deck we're going to talk about is a deck that is just not good right now. It's Kevin chose to play last weekend.
Oh, Stoneblade?
This is no, we're going to talk about Blue White Miracles. That's not what
Yeah.
you played. You played.
No, he
Stoneblade?
plays
No,
Stoneblade.
played
I always
Stoneblade.
jam Miracles.
He's the
Okay.
Miracles guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to talk about Miracles. This deck has kind of waned in popularity because obviously
Top got bad.
Top got banned.
Yeah.
That was a long time coming. I think that Top getting banned more than anything is good because people actually are able to finish rounds of Legacy now,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. I don't think there was anything more frustrating than playing against somebody who was spending 30 seconds topping on multiple occasions on your turn because they changed their mind or something.
Or they forgot, because that used to happen to me. I'll be like, top.
Yeah.
I'd be like, wait a minute, I had an extra mana. I might as well top again just to be sure.
Yeah. I would do that too.
When we would play test, my buddies would be like, Brad, if you spin top twice in one turn without taking a different action and there's no counterbalance in play, you lose the game. Like, if you reorder the same 3 cards and put them back in the same order, you lose. Like, if you just forget.
Wait, really quick, Kevin. When did you play Stone?
Worcester.
It's like 2 weeks ago.
Worcester. Like, okay,
He was on
it
camera.
was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh, you were on camera? I didn't watch.
He was on camera the one round that he wasn't dead yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
so actually, though, I don't think Miracles is a terrible deck. Miracles, I think, has been a pillar in Legacy for a long time. I think a lot of people thought that this deck would die with the absence of Sensei Top, and that has not happened. I think that cards like Portent and cards like Brainstorm mean that Counterbalance still has a reasonable degree of value. Obviously, you're not playing a ton of it anymore. You're probably playing 2 copies now. I think Search for Azcanta is actually quite good in the deck, in my experience.
Oh, it's very good.
I think that card's just better than Jason Mind Sculptor. Period.
Okay. I will disagree with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I disagree as well.
I think that card's better than Jason
Listen,
in Modern and in
Brad,
Legacy.
Brad, it's not too late. You can still retract your statement.
Nope, I'm standing by it.
And everyone could just forget what you just
I
said.
think that card is better than Jason Mind Sculptor in Modern and in Legacy.
I think I
Period.
agree with Brad. God, I can't believe I
When
said
you
that out loud.
untap with Jace post board, it gets Pyroblasted. When you untap with that card and your opponent doesn't have Wasteland in their deck, you win the game.
Over. It's just over like that. Yep. I agree.
Everybody has 3 Pyroblast in their sideboard. Nobody has 3 Wasteland in their sideboard.
Yeah,
I think
because they
Jace-
normally have 4 Wasteland in the main deck.
It's tough to compare these 2 cards. It's honestly tough to compare these 2 cards because they do such wildly different things.
Jake, it's okay, you know.
But I think that having I think that the liability of tapping out for Jace in Modern is like borderline prohibitive at this point with the way that like the Spectre of Jace has directed the format is such that like Jace is
Card's better than
unplayable.
Jace.
Guys,
Card's
listen,
better
this
than
is
Jace.
our
Does this make any sense?
Well, no,
I'm sorry.
Out of all seriousness, guys, this is our sneak preview for next week's show, which is April Fool's Day, and Brad and Kevin will be here continuing with this little rant.
Yeah, and Jake and Gerard won't show up and it'll be hilarious. April
Okay.
Fools, you thought you were
Alright.
getting content.
So let's go back to
creators.
Miracles.
Yeah, miracles are not even.
I don't know if
miracles.
I can let this go.
Yeah, I mean,
Like the Jace
at the
thing?
end of the day,
No, go
Jace
crazy,
thing.
man. The floor is yours.
wait. So Kevin, you think that
I-
Search for Azcanta
Well,
is
I'm
a
the one
better
that's standing
card?
by it, yeah.
You guys were both saying that Search for
I
Azcanta is
think-
a better card than Jace.
At this moment, Search for Azcanta is hands down better than Jace in Modern, and
I think
I'll
it's not
agree
close in Modern,
Brad
and I
is
think that
down.
it's
Yeah,
marginal
Hands
in Legacy.
down.
Okay, Kevin.
Jace costs 4, Search costs 2.
And it's-
Modern's a turn 3.5
it's
format.
marginally
No, it's not.
better
Turn
in
3.5
Legacy.
format. Nobody
for-
wins on turn 3 in Modern. Nobody.
You don't have enough 5/6 Tarmogoyfs.
I think Search is better than
I
Jace
played with 5/6
at
Tarmogoyfs.
executing.
Oh, I play with Lightning Bolt. I always lose to that.
All right, we have multiple
Yeah.
people talking at once right now. So
They're just talking to
you
each
just
other.
need to stop talking while they're talking to each other. They're having a conversation, but it's fine.
It's fine, Kevin.
So, all right.
Kevin, it is fine.
I'm going
You
to
are
take a
still
minute
famous.
to talk
Don't worry.
because
Yeah, go ahead.
both of you just said something that was really, 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 really
Wrong.
wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Jace the Mind
Second
Sculptor is
time
one
today.
of the top 10 Magic the Gathering cards ever printed in terms of power level. Like we were talking about one of the best Magic cards that you could possibly play in a game of Magic, and then you're talking about Search for Azcanta, this flip card from Ixalan. Right now, Search for Azcanta, I've played with it in Modern. It's been quite good in a number of decks. The thing is, the decks that you can play it in, that's extremely prohibitive. The other thing is that Jace fits into a lot of shells. Like, Jace automatically wins games by itself. Jace has a card advantage engine and a win condition by itself. Jace is a card that allows you to recycle cards that you've drawn that are not good in a particular matchup. Jace has so many applications in a game of Magic, and is just, in terms of pure power level, probably the most powerful card in Modern.
Yes, and I agree with
And-
everything everything Jake says. Now, once he's done, I want to do the Search for Azcanta take.
Yeah,
I want to explain what Search for Azcanta does. Basically, what it does. Oh,
So
yeah,
that's,
okay.
I'm done.
You're done.
That's
Okay,
what Jace
all
the
right.
Mind Sculptor
So,
does. Tell me
what Search for Azcanta
does.
does, all right? You play it on turn 2. Most of the time on turn 3, you forget the trigger. So you just draw the card anyway. Then next turn, you remember the trigger, but the card's good, so you're just going to draw it anyway. So that's basically another mistrigger. Then at the end of the day, you flip it over,
and you activate it only to look at no non-creature or non-land cards.
Yeah.
This happens. This
That's what
literally
happens in
happens.
Standard when I play the card.
And then
Well,
you
you
just
put
put
it in a
all
deck
the
that's
cards
got
on the
20 creatures,
bottom.
though.
Yeah.
You just put all the cards on the bottom. Then you take all your cards, scoop them up, and shake the hand, and that's it.
Oh, it's
You-
like
you
it's like
do shake
Augur
the
of
hand?
Bolas. Reorder
Yes,
the
that's a
bottom
good
4
segue.
cards of your
And,
library.
and that's it. And that's going to be a segue into one of our future topics today. But overall, I would say Search for Esconded is nowhere near as powerful as Jace. I agree with everything Jake says. I think you guys are 100% wrong. Search, I love Search. When Search came out and it was a $3 card, I knew it was going to be a $15 card. But at the end of the
Can
day,
I get back on this
it
horse
doesn't
real
matter.
quick before we segue?
No, okay.
No,
so,
you're
so
done.
it-
You're
Are we
done.
done with this
Yeah,
conversation?
we
You're
talked
done.
about this
We're
too
not
much.
allowed to be
Yeah.
wrong.
We took on a tangent.
Yeah.
Alright,
we
fair
went
enough.
off. We went
Okay,
off.
blue,
on
white.
us.
Wait,
It was
I
fun.
want to take
I wanna
this.
go
Blue,
first.
no, blue, white. No, I'll go quick.
All right.
All right,
Blue,
so we're
white,
in the opposite order. That's
blue,
fine.
white
Alright.
slash miracles, whatever you want. If you're playing
Yeah.
counterbalance, that's fine. If you're playing important, that's fine. Or you can just play blue white control. You can play with main deck back to the basics, whatever you want. Okay, so we're looking at a blue white control deck in Legacy. Is it good? I think it's okay. The problem with just playing a blue white deck is that you do not have a clock. That's the whole issue with the deck. You are there and you're just literally doing nothing. You're like, okay, I have a Source to Plowshares. You might have a Terminus. You might have a Supreme Verdict. You have a Counterspell. But think about it. The card Counterspell is, basically the best Counterspell that has ever been made. People could argue Forcible is better, but just pure casting the card, 2 mana, counter target spell, counter anything. The deck only plays usually between 1-2 copies. So there's something showing you that if you have access to the best counterspell and you're not even playing 4, maybe there's an issue with the deck in general. I feel most of the time the blue-white deck is just pondering or just brainstorming, not really doing too much. At the end of the day, I think the deck is trash. I think if you are going to an event where the player quality is kind of low, I could see someone doing well. But overall, I would say this deck's not that good. If you're bringing it to a Pro Tour, at a Pro Tour level, you're going to play against really, really good players. Against a Grand Prix level, you're playing against really good players. And I think that if you do get matched up against these good players and you're playing your slow deck, you're just going to get annihilated by combo. You're going to get annihilated by, elf-type decks, lands, Delver. You get annihilated by everything. Trash deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think elves might be okay, but
I also think it's a
Yeah.
trash deck.
All right, now we said trash. Brad, you could go on a tangent because you love this deck.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'll agree that
Look at
this
his
deck
eyes.
is
He's
not.
getting so he's feeling some type of way right now.
So, Miracles is a shadow of its former self, 100%. Miracles with top is broken. Miracles without top is by no means broken. But Delver of Secrets and the Grixis Delver decks are almost 35% of the metagame on Magic Online. And they're about the same when you go to these opens. Your match percentage against specifically Grixis Delver is 70% game 1 and still favored post-board when they board in 6 cards. Bitter Blossom, Surgical,
Sulfuric
Pyroblast,
Vortex.
Sulfuric Vortex. They board in a million cards and they still can't ever beat you.
To be
I
fair,
played a
what-
Legacy Challenge where I played against Abzan Nickfit once and Delver 6 times.
To
And
be
I
fair,
went-
in that team tournament, we
I'm
would
saying
have
Nick
lost
Fit
to
is
that guy
sweet.
playing Grixis Delver. But then you top decked out of it. You top decked the Mentor, remember? Where you played Sulfuric Vortex?
No, I lost that game.
Oh, you
he
did
played
lose that
Sulfuric
game.
Vortex because I won 7, and then he played Sulfuric Vortex when I was on 19 because I wasn't on the draw.
Yeah, and you just
and I
pondered
killed his
and found
Delver,
Mentor and
I
you died.
made 9 Mentor tokens and slaughtered him. I also disagree with the deck having no clock because you just on turn 4 play a Mentor and a Ponder, and then if they don't kill your Mentor, you win the game on the spot when you untap with it. And if they kill your Mentor, all right, well you have 2 others in your main deck. You have back to basics that you just slam. You make them have days plus force because you're playing main deck Flusterstorm. But the deck is a house of cards. You have 8 cards with text and 52 cards that are lands and cantrips. So if your 8 cards with text either don't resolve or aren't good, you instantly lose the game. So
So are you going to say treasure or trash?
I think this deck is a bad deck that I love playing.
Okay, so you think it's trash, maybe?
Yeah.
Could this be the first all-trash deck? Kevin, you also said trash, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I hope that Miracles guy, Dan Miller, I hope that guy wasn't listening.
No,
Thought it was
well,
trash.
his deck is actually good because he plays Miri's Guile.
I
He
played
does.
I played
He
against
also
him.
plays Vulcan Trop and his
Yeah,
I
Miracles
played
deck
against-
is
His deck is different.
explosive
His
for
deck
four.
is
His deck is
his deck
different.
is not actually miracles.
Yeah,
his,
his
deck
deck
is
is good. I like his
Enchantress
deck.
with
Yeah.
Search for Esconda. I played against him last night and he went turn 1 Miri's Guile, turn 2 Scroll Rack, turn 3 Life from the Loam, and his lands in play were a Field of Ruin and a Wasteland.
Yeah, his deck is good.
That deck is not
I didn't
miracles.
Yeah,
expect that.
yeah.
Is it a cube? Was it a cube draft?
Game 1 he went Field of Ruin, Wasteland, Plains, and I went, Counterbalance, Jason the Mind Sculptor. He went, I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say that deck is good unless I've played with
Scroll
a that
rack.
person understands the deck.
What's
really
a
well.
combo? You scroll right back
Dan
to lands.
Miller, shout out to Dan Miller. That guy knows his legacy
Yeah.
a lot. And he also knows vintage. One time I talked to him, just like pick his brain or whatever, and I would say, I want to say everything he says, but I don't want to use the word everything. Almost everything that he said made total sense, and he had like really good logic and reason to back it up.
Him and Joe Brennan do a lot of work
Yep,
together.
yeah,
They're both
those
very
guys
good
are
at it.
really,
They're
really
both very good, I
But
agree.
listen, if you're, I don't know if he has a team already for the team RPTQs, but if you're looking for a good legacy player, hit up Dan Miller.
Well, I think he's probably going to play with his nephew,
Oh, okay.
who's Brendan McCarley.
Okay. All right.
So-
The team
that's
are
fair.
the team PPDQs are.
So I'm just gonna cut you off right here because we're gonna move on and talk about Dredge, which is their last deck.
Oh, that deck's really good. It plays out of its graveyard.
So
You managed to
Dredge kind
cut
of
me
a
off in a
curveball.
Brad-esque way, and I got mad.
No. So the reason I'm cutting
would
you
you
off
say you
is
got
because
dibs on?
we're
Hurting
like,
on time.
We're not necessarily hurting on time, but I feel like we're going too deep down.
Guys,
rabbit holes
there's
right
somebody
now, and I think
standing
it's
right
better
there
to
with a timer.
kind of,
So
Yeah.
I was kidding.
And it just says too
control
much.
the situation. So the last deck we're going to talk about is Dredge. This is a deck that has kind of fallen off the radar in some ways, but there are people who have always played it, who always continue to play it. Is there still a ton of hate out there for Dredge, with people not having access to a lot of the sideboard cards because people aren't playing white as often in Legacy in general? Does that help Dredge? Do you feel like Dredge might be like a sleeper deck right now that might be good? Or do you think that it's just been bad, and because it's been bad, it is still bad?
Wait, I'll take lead on this one, okay?
Go ahead.
My first question is, all right, before
All right.
a 5-second question, I think Jake will love this one the most, okay? Why is a deck called Dredge? If I'm playing a deck with all flying creatures, I'm probably not calling my deck flying, or if I have haste creatures in my deck, I'm not calling my deck haste. Do you have an answer?
What did you bring to class?
Yeah, what did you bring to class? What's your answer? You have to give me an answer. You have 10 seconds to think of an answer. Why are they calling
It's
it
the
Dredge?
defining mechanic. It's the same as Storm.
Okay, the reason you're
Okay,
calling...
yeah, you got a good answer. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Brad's
perfect,
answer is good,
perfect
but-
answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to defer to Brad.
Okay.
That's all the
Yeah.
deck.
I was
All
gonna
the
say
deck
something
does
more
is
convoluted,
Dredge.
but-
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, totally right. Okay, so now let's talk about Dredge. Dredge.
Also, Infect. Like, there are a bunch of decks that are named specifically for their only mechanic.
But be honest, I got Jake right. He didn't know.
You only named evergreen ones. That's why.
So basically, Dredge is a good deck. I've been playing a lot of Legacy, and Dredge is a good deck. The issue with Dredge is A, it's like a good game 1 deck. Okay. B, you don't really have a lot of play to it because after like turn 2, it's not like you're like thinking, oh, should I use this to stop my opponent's card? You can't stop
You
your
just
opponent's
activate
card.
Cephalid Coliseum and cast your one thing in
Yeah,
the
the
graveyard.
only thing you could ever do that's skill intensive in Dredge is
Ball therapy.
well, yeah, I was gonna get to that. Cabal Therapy, but before Cabal Therapy,
The
is
other one thing.
the other one thing is whether or not you should mulligan your hand. That's not even playing Magic. All right, so I'm not hating on all the Dredge people out there,
You're just not playing Magic.
but realistically, you're not playing Magic. That's true. You're playing a game called Dredge, and that's it. For me, the deck is trash. I don't like it. Will it win Grand Prix? Will it win the Team Pro Tour? Maybe. Did it win Grand Prix before? I'm sure it has. I just don't remember. But at the end of the day, I don't really like the deck. The deck is not for me. Actually, really quick, I did a giveaway on my Twitter. I picked 5 people, somewhat at random, and I coached them. Okay, I did my first
What does that mean?
He
coaching.
picked 4 random people and then you.
my first coaching
I won.
session was yesterday, and somebody that I am coaching is playing Manaless Dredge, like the most non-Magic deck possible, because he has no lands.
You don't
in the
even
deck.
get to decide whether you're mulliganing. You're just like, this has 7 cards.
Yes, you keep every and you don't even really want to roll a die because you want to lose a die roll anyway.
Yeah.
So after I help this person, great guy. After I help him, he's gonna play it in Seattle. In 2 weeks from now, I can come back to the show and then I'll give you my true opinion on Dredge. But right now, Dredge I don't like, especially Manaless Dredge. But we'll see what happens.
Oh, I have a Manaless
This
Dredge story.
deck already gets to exist in Vintage, where you get to tap the card Bazaar of Baghdad. Go play Dredge in Vintage, where it's like defensible, and stop wasting my time registering it across from me. I've beaten Dredge on mulligans to 3, where I pass the turn for 3 turns. Stop playing Dredge.
But you want them to play Dredge because you've been winning.
It doesn't matter. I don't get those players in round 1. They're in like the
Oh,
04 bracket. I don't get to play against them.
All right, all right.
Well,
Okay, all right, Kevin, your turn.
I think Dredge is probably trash. I think that Dredge fluctuates between like barely trash, or like very trash and barely treasure, but like no one really like takes any sort of like time to figure out whether or not it's good, and it's very hard to tell because it's a lot of specifics about whether or not it's good. But everyone still plays Grave Hate because everyone hates losing to it, and I think some decks play like really really good Grave Hate that you can almost never beat. Rest in peace. So I wouldn't play Dredge. I think it's trash. My brief Dredge anecdote is one time I played against Manaless Dredge when I was playing Blue Red Delver years ago. I kept a no lander. I cast Probe. I said go.
Did your opponent also
go.
keep a no-lander?
No,
Yeah.
my opponent, always keeps a no-lander. They discarded. I said go 3 turns. On turn 4, I played Grafdigger's Cage and a Volcanic Island, and my opponent conceded.
Yeah. There was a guy who used to want to play Test Manaless Dredge, so I would play a Bayou and a Deathrite Shaman, and he would walk away.
Yeah. So, I had a couple people
Phantasmagorian.
this week asked me about different Legacy decks, and one of them they asked me about was Dredge. And my biggest concern was Deathrite Shaman. And I think that as long as Deathrite Shaman's part of Legacy, that deck's not really going to be a major entity. And I'm okay with that. I agree with you guys. I think that it's a deck where there are a lot of opportunities for triggers to be messed up and or missed entirely. It's often, they...
Not a Magic Online, you can't miss those triggers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a clerical nightmare while also not being particularly well positioned right now. But
It's
there are
also
some
not
people
fun to
who've
be
been playing
across them.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that have played it forever who have some success with
Bless
it
you.
and might continue to have success with it. So
And really quick, one last tip. The number one giveaway if your opponent is playing Dredge is a really, really nice looking like 1997 playmat. Like one of those Spellground playmats. They lay it out.
Oh, yeah, because they need to use all their
Yes,
space.
yes. So if they have that, it's probably at least 50% chance that they're playing Dredge.
It's like the Thalia mat, you're like, ooh. Blue players will bluff. They'll like show up with a Dark Confidant mat and go turn 1 Brainstorm. But the Thalia players, they got the Thalia mat or the Port mat every time.
I never saw that Thalia mat before.
I like the soul reads. I can't believe Jake doesn't cut you guys off when you talk about nonsense.
That's because
like this.
our nonsense is funny. Your nonsense is wrong.
so
Your nonsense
I
is
think-
Search for Escadas is better than Jace.
It is! I said that first and I got to make fun of him for it.
Whatever.
not.
I'll put that in my article this week.
that's good. I'm gonna start a GoFundMe to put that on your gravestone.
I was thinking the same thing, Jake. Jake, I was thinking the same thing. I'm not even... Here lies a man. I thought Search for Escadas was better than Jace.
It's like that video of the dude just laughing for 3 minutes in an interview.
Yeah, that's...
Is that video on YouTube?
Yes.
Literally today, I searched up on YouTube.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm going
I'll
to
just
cut you
stop,
off
I'll
on this.
stop.
one.
Please!
I'm sorry.
For
Come on.
my dignity,
Literally
cut them off!
today.
For the
Search
love
on
of
YouTube.
God!
Alright. Next thing we're going to talk about now is
Gerard's
modern
YouTube
no ban
searches.
list.
Okay.
We're gonna have a modern no ban list tournament
Yep.
here at the
Yep.
Bearded Dragon. This
It's
is
gonna be a
format
big
that's had
tournament.
Some traction recently. Delver decks that play cards like Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise are all the rage.
And
Jataxian
Lightning Bolt.
Probe.
Jataxian
Yeah.
Probe.
Mental misstep.
There are a lot of decks you can play. There are a lot of powerful things you can do. What do you guys think of this format, and what decks do you want to play in this format?
I remember we briefly touched upon it
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
a
you
few
can-
months back.
You're good.
And I think Kevin had the most insight, to be honest.
I think you're right.
So we're going to have Kevin start with this. And I'm probably going to just jump in the bandwagon of whatever Kevin plays.
Okay, so I think Brad, and I'll give Brad a little credit, made a really good point that you can just play 4 mental missteps, and that every deck that's seeking to interact in any capacity, and the decks that are seeking not to be interacted with too, in a like retroactive leveling way, are all going to play mental missteps. So the first thing I thought of when trying to build the deck that I really wanted to build in the format, which of course is Splinter Twin, the first thing I thought about is not playing any copies of Ponder or Preordain. And the reason why I was going to do this is because it allows you to play 4 copies of
Chromox.
Chalice, both Chromox and Chalice of the Void. And your card advantage / filtering technique is 4 Thirst for Knowledge, which sits on the same spot in the mana curve as Deceiver Exarch, and both are accelerated by your Chromoxes. And with these 0 mana artifacts, you can play a Trinket Mage, which lets you main deck an Explosives, and have some way to get a bunch of the 1 mana Elves or whatever off the board. So the deck that I would play in the format is Splinter Twin with Chalices, Moxes, Thirsts, and a couple Jace the Mind Sculptors. And that's the deck I would play. I also would probably play Disrupting Shoal, because although it's way worse
Kevin's
without
playing
the
a
1 mana
93 card
spells,
deck. So.
I would just play this
Yeah,
deck
he
because
really
it's super
is.
sweet, and you don't have to play Ponder or Preordain, which is the hardest way to like figure out the space for everything in this format. Like this deck, it's really hard to build decks in this format because you just want to look back
You just get to do
at
everything.
like decks from the past, but like everything is you're allowed to play everything.
Yeah,
So like
I
it's
think-
super hard to figure out like what actually matters, because all the decks that exist have contained like various cards that are legal now, and there's no way they can contain all of them anymore.
Yeah, no, and I can buy that. And I think a lot of the things you said seemed really, really smart to me. I think, leveling the mental misstep game is wise. I
Yeah.
think that this is a format where almost every competitive deck plays 4 copies of mental misstep and also plays a ton of
Yeah.
other 1-drops.
Yeah.
So perhaps, like, circumventing that in some way or another
I
is
might
a wise
still play
decision.
missteps because it
Um,
forces your chalice through.
Yeah, I mean, if they're playing
But-
missteps too, that one of the issues might be that
Yeah.
then, like, you suddenly have targets, whereas
Yeah.
previously, like, you've built a deck.
Yeah, I wouldn't
where-
play missteps.
Yeah,
You can just discard them with
if you're
thirst,
gonna
but
go,
If you're already not playing
if you're
one
not
drops, what are
playing
you
the
misstepping?
ponders and stuff, then I think it's probably best
misstep
to just
doesn't
not
target
play
your
them all
chalice.
together
Yeah,
because like you want to be playing to blank cards in your opponent's
Yeah,
deck,
yeah.
so you might as well
Right.
actually blank those cards. I lost you a bit at Disrupting Shoal, but I'll forgive you for
I
that.
forgot I wasn't playing 1-mana blue spells. I probably wouldn't play Disrupting
Yeah,
Troll
yeah, yeah.
anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
I think like Blood Moon though you would play, right?
I
Blood Moon.
know I'd play Punishing Fire.
Okay.
Punishing
so-
Fire over Blood Moon. Okay.
Yeah, because
Alright,
I don't
so-
have any way to
Seems
kill
good against
Deathright,
Delver and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and a 2-mana answer
Well, you
to
missed that
Deathright.
Deathright, or chalice it.
Yeah, you chalice
You're
it.
just
but
always
you-
on the play.
Fire is fine.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that Kevin's deck sounds sweet, but he's fundamentally missing the point, which is that you get to play with Ancestral Recall in this format, and you're just not playing it.
Oh, I play Dig.
That's not Ancestral Recall.
Are you talking about Treasure Cruise?
Yeah, that's
All right.
Ancestral Recall. So,
Tell
shout
our
out
viewers
to
why you like
fellow
Treasure Cruise
Bearded
so
Dragon teammate Tariq Patel, who has been messing with this format a little bit. He's playing, like, basically Grixis Delver with Chromox. So you cut the Delvers, like Legacy Delver with Chromox in this format instead. And you just try to turn 1 a Young Pyromancer, and you just, like, always turn 2 or turn 3 Treasure Cruise, and you're just doing absurd things with only Monastery Swift Spears, like 1 or 2 of the red-blue haste flyer, and 4 Young Pyro. And you're just, like, playing black cards like Thoughtseize, not necessarily Thoughtseize, but discard, sometimes it's Collective Brutality, to mess with your opponent's plan. And you're just playing all the cantrips,
Is
probes,
playing one
and,
Black
like,
Faden?
16 lands.
So I've seen some decks 5-0, both in Legacy and in Modern, that have played the Storm Chaser Mage.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
prowess
yeah.
card you're talking about.
2-mana 1/3
And
flyer.
yeah, it's a 2-mana 1/3 flying prowess
Yep.
with haste. Every time I have queued up for a league with a deck that had that card in it, and I drew and played that card, it felt like the most unplayable piece of garbage I'd ever cast. And I like immediately dropped from the league and was like, "Why did I do this to myself again?" So
That card is
I'm
like-
just guessing that
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of the things that he's on are really smart, but I think Storm Chaser Mage in general is
He just wanted a 5th 2-drop.
It's just a whack attack.
Storm
It's not a
Chaser
good
Mage and like the term groundbreaking or cutting edge like technology should not ever coexist. Like Storm Chaser Mage is never correct.
card. I think it's correct a very it
Of, like,
probably
very
such a
small
small
amount
percentage
of
of
the
the
time.
time that
But it's blue and red for your Chromox.
I know this is like the most Kevin Jones card possible, and it's just so bad. that
No,
I'll never
Mantis
play it.
Rider is actually good in Modern and Humans. You already get to be Kevin Jones in Modern. You don't need more.
That's right.
All right. So really quick, based on Kevin and Brad's deck, I would probably play like Black White Enchantments for the Rest in Peace and Knights of Souls Betrayal to beat both of you guys.
It's sweet. I like that.
Yeah, but in reality, I think maybe Affinity could be really good. You get to play
Skull Clamp?
Yeah, you get to play Skull Clamp. You get to play
The lands.
You get to play Disciple of the Vault. So, and you still get to play like Arcbound Ravager,
Mox Opal.
Mox. I mean, the deck is just
Mox Opal's just Mox.
yeah, the deck is already really good, and you get to play all the cards that they banned. I would just play Affinity. I think.
I like that take too.
Yeah.
Is
There's so many decks
Thoughtcast
I wanna
better than
play,
Treasure
but I'm
Cruise,
not
though?
even Not even gonna
Is
go there.
Dogcast better than Treasure Cruise? Yeah.
Elves.
I would say yes because
Why?
Oh,
Because
man,
it's always
I would
one?
love to play
It's
some
always
elves.
one.
I don't think
It's
elves will
always
be very good in a mental misstep format.
yeah,
Yeah.
elves
But-
stinks. Don't play elves.
Elves
Yeah,
is
I know.
like-
I know.
yeah.
I love it, and it's my most favorite deck to play ever.
Yeah.
Eclipse Elves, back when it was in extended, but it does not feel like it would be good enough for this format, unfortunately.
What about like
Sad.
KCI, Thopter, Foundry, Sword
Stop
of the
trying to
Knee?
play fair. Misstep's legal.
You can misstep with that deck. That's a combo deck, right? That deck's
Your win
sweet.
count costs like
Yeah.
9.
All right, true story. Before we go on to the next topic, when Jake was a little kid, he dressed up as an elf for Halloween, and the teacher said, "Oh wow, you're the Keebler elf," and he goes, "No, I'm the Llanowar elf."
No.
And then he got suspended for 2 days.
Okay, yeah.
For talking back to his teacher.
Sure.
He got a
Sure.
detention.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, detention sphere?
That's like 10 years too early.
Yeah.
Someone said
That's
Llanowar was a bad
Appeared
word
in
in
the
pig
future.
Latin
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
This was like the 90s.
Yeah. But you knew about detention sphere. You had that just your first drawing on Mom's fridge, just waiting 20 years
It's like the Da Vinci drawing with like the orange just Jake inside the bubble, like waiting.
with a detention sphere.
Yeah, he's in
Alright,
the.
so the next thing we're going to be talking about, guys, is the Magic Puzzle that the Bearded Dragon Games posted on
yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
This got a lot of
Ton of
action
comments.
going.
It
you
was,
know,
it was
people
the
really
easiest
excited.
puzzle to figure out. Honestly, I didn't even know what the question was. I looked at
There's
it.
like
and
19
I was like, I'm
permanents,
done.
and
Yeah.
there literally is no answer. I happen to know both answers, the official answer and the unofficial answer. I don't know what I'm
So,
allowed to say.
What were you
but-
trying to do? Tell everybody what the.
So the
I-
board state is that you have a Spirit of the Labyrinth, so you're only allowed to cast one spell a turn.
But
I don't know
no.
rhetoric, but
Tell
yeah.
me what the goal was.
you
What
have
are
to win.
You have to win.
And you get to have infinite life, start Hellbent, and draw any card you want every turn of the game. And your opponent's turn consists of doing nothing other than failing to draw a card, failing to lose due to Platinum Angel, and getting a copy of Alice Norn that lives because there's a mirror gallery. And their board state already has a thing that lets you only cast one spell a turn, a thing that counters your first spell each turn, a thing that says you can't cycle, a thing that says you can't have a graveyard.
All right, really quick. I'm sure nobody out there is confused, so continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point it's impossible
It's a
to
picture.
follow, right?
There's
So-
19 permanents.
Yeah, so if you go online, you can find it. This is something a lot of people were talking about. Unfortunately, there actually is no answer. Initially, it was thought that there was an answer
There's an
that
answer.
was, involving Progenitor Mimic, but what ends up happening is that the Elish Norns replicate at such a pace that you're never actually able to
beat them, yeah.
have the combo, like have the
with
Yeah.
Aeon
you know,
Chronicler
clones.
or
Aeon Chronicler
Alter
or
Ego
Train of
whatever.
Thought.
Yeah, the
And
Aeon
Emrakul.
Chronicler
Yeah.
Alter Ego thing doesn't actually work. The one idea that does work, but it's kind of again bending the rules a little bit, is to start with
A Cataract
the
Leviathan in your
Cataract
graveyard.
Leviathan
That's
in
the
your
only
graveyard.
solution.
That's Andrew's solution, and I think the most accurate answer probably is just that there is no answer.
There is no answer. Yeah.
However,
Wait,
this
wait,
is
hold
something
on.
that's talked about a lot, and we are going to be doing giveaways
Wait.
for people who had creative
The answer was
answers,
there's no answer?
for people who came up with the answers that some people thought were right initially,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and for people who, kind of bent the rules a little bit in order to solve it. So we're going to be giving away prizes to a ton of people on that
Yeah.
thread. Thank you guys, all of you who got excited about it. Every single one of you who said that you wanted to play Boseiju
Tapped
and then do
and then
something.
pass.
Come on.
A lot of
and
people
come on.
told me they wanted to like play Cavern of Souls and like Cascade with Shardless Agent into Candelabra of Tawnos and then untap
I liked
Cavern of Souls.
Derivi from Command Zone untaps Boseiju, and then you just overload Cyclonic Rift. But it says there's no commanders in like the second line of the post.
Oh, that's a good answer
And,
though.
and shout out to everybody who didn't give an answer, because the answer is there is no answer. So technically, you
Failing
won
to
too.
answer is not
Yes.
the same as answering there isn't an answer.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fair. Okay.
I
All right.
think that's
Yeah, but it was a
good.
cool
The
puzzle.
limit does
It
not
was-
exist.
You know, I liked it. Jake
Fetch
liked
is
it.
not going to happen.
So we're gonna do a lot more of those giveaway type puzzles, because that's what they used to do back in the day in like the Scry magazine.
Yeah.
Or Inquest. And,
So
I
also,
remember figuring those out. Those
if
were
you're
fun.
angry for all of the time you lost, add Andrew Zarek on Facebook.
don't worry, they're not gonna know how to spell his last name.
Yeah, it's
That's-
fine.
that's accurate.
He is the creator of the puzzle.
All right, so we're gonna move on now.
Okay.
The next thing we're gonna talk about is shaking hands. This has shaken the Magic world over the last 48 hours. People are talking a lot about whether or not you should be shaking your opponent's hand. Kevin seems to be a big proponent of shaking hands with everybody, and he says that, if you shake hands with people, it shows that you are human, and people who don't, like, basically this is Kevin's entire moral ground, right?
I want a Twitter
Shake
follower.
towards
I mean,
this.
Not exactly. Basically, what I said is that I feel that there's a very important value placed on like competitive spirit, and
Okay.
one of the reasons why I play Magic, or one of the largest reasons why I play Magic, is that I enjoy competing. I enjoy competition in conventional sports, in mental sports, in one-upping your friends,
Yeah.
doing dumb things when you're 12 years old and jumping over fences or whatever. I like competing. So I think that when you play Magic, especially in the competitive capacity, you should have some respect for the institution that is competition. And a corollary of that is respect for your opponent. And I think I've always, at least in the past, 7 or so years since I started playing serious competitive Magic and grinding and stuff, I've always offered the handshake at the conclusion of the match, win or lose. And it's an offer of respect to my opponent. It's, hey, maybe we had a small argument during the game, maybe not, maybe we had great games, one way or the other. We both are here out of respect for the spirit of competition, and we are sharing that, and I appreciate you, and here's my hand. And that's my context, and I think that there's a lot to be said about choosing to deny that, because it flies in the face of not only, the interpersonal interaction potentially going awry as a result of that, but also, I think it's disrespectful to the game. I think that, when I was in Little League, we shook hands after the game, We came up and down the row, and we slapped hands with the opposing team, and kids would be sore losers occasionally and, not do that. But, it was quickly taught that, you're supposed to respect the game, you're supposed to respect your fellow competitors, and you're supposed to slap hands. And I don't really think it's that hard. Maybe coming from a sports background, I see this a little differently. I'm not going to, okay, so there's a brief aside to this, and then you can cut me off. I don't want people to be pressured to shake hands if they're physically uncomfortable with touching another person. If there's a hygiene risk or any sort of risk where you are averse to physical contact for a variety of reasons, I think it's completely okay to decline, and you don't have to say, oh, I decline because touching people makes me anxious. You can just say, oh, I decline for this reason, or as a personal choice.
You just say no thank you politely.
Yeah.
You give them a nod and a smile.
If you do
something.
It's pretty obvious that you're not declining because you're salty. But if you're ever declining because you're salty, it's because, you were a competitor who was bested in the arena of competition, and to decline because you're salty is bad for the same reason that you are salty. Being salty is good. Being frustrated that you lost is good, because it means you value the competition highly. But you should shake hands for the same reason that you are mad that you lost, if that makes any sense. I'm good on that.
Okay.
That's my piece.
Yeah, no, and I don't want to cut you off because I wanted to give you a chance to say your piece. Brad, do you have a different take on shaking hands?
So
do you put much stock into this?
I have about half of Kevin's take. I do have a different take. So I grew up playing Little League, but I also grew up playing a lot of online games. And so for me, a handshake and a winner's handshake are two fundamentally different things. A winner's handshake is the right before lethal GG and Moto chat. That's bad manners, disrespectful, got you, now you should feel bad because you lost. Whereas handshake offered by the loser is I am happy with the way these games played out, and I wish you the best for the rest of the day. To the point where if I'm offered a winner's handshake at F&M or something, yeah, I will always shake my opponent's hand if they offer it, but I actively make it a point to try to teach other people, hey, just so you know, if you go to a big tournament, some people are not going to be happy with a winner's handshake. You may want to only offer it when you lose. And I believe that is correct, that you should offer the handshake as the loser all of the time, and that you shouldn't really offer the winner's handshake, not necessarily if you mean it in a bad manners way, but because it's likely to be perceived that way. Mm-hmm. So I think there should always be a handshake initiated by the loser.
I think it's important to reverse the perception that initiating the handshake as the winner of the match.
But I think that's the dichotomy between sports and esports. Little League, everybody shakes hands and everybody goes and gets ice cream. Esports, you're angry, you talk on Skype with your friends, then you queue up for another game and try to make fun of the other people to feel better. Sure. One is inherently a toxic community,
and one is
inherently
one is not, exactly.
A community of people trying to just associate with other people and jam games.
So even if we're doing something super small bones, super interpersonal level, hey, let's just try to talk to our opponents a little bit about this. Isn't it good to try to reduce the amount of toxicity in the Magic community, even if it's splash toxicity?
But then that's a discussion you have to have. That's a discussion you have to have at the beginning of the game. You have to be hey, are you okay with the winner's handshake? Because I really just I'm here to play Magic. I'm not here to offend you. And then at that point, you don't need to preface your match of Magic with that, right? You shouldn't need to feel out your opponent's feelings. The goal of your match of Magic should be to win the match of Magic, and secondarily, to not make your opponent's day worse. Those are, in my opinion, your only two jobs at the table. Don't make their experience worse, and try to win.
I can't remember being no-sirred, and I've offered the winner's handshake. I guess that's maybe because I only win like 35% of my matches. Maybe that's part of it.
Well, you also like create a strong rapport with your opponent, though. You chat throughout the match. You
Yeah.
aren't silent storm player that killed you on turn 3 or was locked out of the game on turn 3
It's
both
like,
games.
Grape shot you for 50. Like, that's not okay.
But like you create a rapport and you like crack jokes. You, whether your opponent wants it or not, you try to be your opponent's friend or at least nice to them. If somebody's silent the whole time and then they crush you and they're just like, good games.
Yeah.
Are you really going to react the same way?
I think you can certainly offer a winner's handshake in a way that is blatantly toxic and not okay.
Sure.
But I think that if you do it in a normal way, it's fine.
Okay.
You don't want to wind it up real quick and then send it over.
But there's a
Gerard, what's your
yeah.
take on this?
All right, so my take is that I think in general in life, we have a giveaway coming
Yeah.
up, so make sure you guys stay tuned. We're gonna pull the winner.
For a box of Masters 25.
Yeah, box of Masters 25. All right.
That's a deal.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. All right, so in life in general, there's many different things, right? And there's people who
Sorry.
get upset over things that you shouldn't get upset at. There's nothing to worry about. Why get upset? That's the whole thing, right? Say, for example, if I'm a waiter and I serve people and they don't leave me a tip, okay, you don't have to leave me a tip. No big deal. Because there's no written law that they have to leave you a tip unless it's like we 100% tip 15% if your party's 6 or more, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
Included gratuity.
Yeah,
or whatever,
included gratuity. But at the end of the day, that person has the option to not tip you. So if I go out to eat, if I want to tip $1,000 or if I want to tip nothing, I have the right to tip or not tip. Is that correct? Okay? For a Magic game, you have the right to offer the handshake. You have the right not to offer the handshake. You have the right to accept the handshake. You have the right to decline the handshake. So if they want to end the discussion of should you shake hands, should you not shake hands, I saw other people make a video about this on YouTube, just make a rule, a tournament rule, that for you to partake in our tournament, you have to either shake the hand or say good game. Otherwise, everyone's free to do whatever they like, obviously within reason.
Yeah, and we already kind of do have a rule, which is just unsporting conduct minor if you're going to be rude at the table.
Exactly. So we already have
Just
that
in
rule.
general.
But there's no rule or there's no penalty where if you don't shake the opponent's hand or if you do offer the handshake after you storm them for 100. So at the end of the day, I think that is probably best to leave it up to the tournament organizer or whoever comes up with these, rulings. But for now, you as a person, as long as you're treating the other person respectfully, could basically do the handshake, not the handshake, and that's pretty much it. So I'm kind of on Brad's side here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give my take on this.
Sure.
Even as the host.
Please.
So I mean, what you said
I wanna
about
hear
not tipping, I don't know if that's a great analog here because I think that there are definitely like moral questions about that. Like people, like there is a
It's
social contract.
Well,
I was gonna
well,
say,
the whole
it's a
thing is
social
that
contract.
it's
Yeah.
only a social contract, or you think you should definitely do this or you should definitely not do it because other people maybe influence you on it. But
yeah, and that's fair.
at the end of the day, what we're really
it's
trying to
okay to curate.
Yeah,
your
Jake,
corral
listen, at the end of the
people
day,
wanna be
you-
around, and that could be.
you
a
are a
factor
great
in that.
person, Jake. I'm being
Yeah.
honest here. You are. I've known you. I've known you for over 10 years now. What is it? 2018? Yeah. In 2006. So
Yeah.
12 years because you won the Pro Tour.
2005.
Oh yeah, 2005.
Yeah,
Okay, because you won the Pro Tour in 2007.
Yeah.
So I know you are a great person. So if we went out to eat and you're like, you know what, I didn't like how that waiter or waitress treated me, I'm not leaving a tip, I would not think any less of you. And if you played a game of Magic and you were really disappointed and somebody said, hey, good game, and you said, you know what, I don't really think it's a good game, I just want to take a minute to collect my thoughts, I would not think any less of you because I know who you are. So out there, if you know who you are, don't worry about other people judging you because if you're a good person at the end of the day, you're the only person you really have to answer to.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm
So
telling you.
now I'm also going to bring this back to Kevin's story about playing sports as a kid. I remember after every game, both players you go up and down, teams shake hands. I think that's a good practice and it's good teaching
Definitely
kids
really
to not
good
be sore
teaching, yeah.
losers. However, I remember one time one of my teams made it very deep. Right, we were I believe in the semifinals, and we were all very young, and it mattered to us. And I think for a lot of us, it was kind of the first thing that we really
cared about
ever in
a
that
larger
way,
scale level.
in our entire lives. And when we lost, a decent portion of my team, I think myself included, did not end up shaking hands with the other team because we were too upset. And I think that it's important to remember that human beings have emotions, and it's okay to have those emotions. And I don't think it's fair for people to judge so quickly a person's character based on whether or not they're going to shake somebody's hand in a situation where, you know, you're not fully educated on what they might be feeling at that time. And I think it's okay to feel things, and it's okay to act appropriately as long as you're not making other people in the tournament feel unsafe, as long as you're, you know, not saying things that are, you know, wildly exclusionary or something like that. I think Magic is a place where it should not only be okay for people to be who they are, but it should also be okay for people to have feelings. And because of that, I'm going to say that, you know, you don't have to shake people's hands. And I don't think that
Well
anybody
said,
should be
Jake. Well
required
said.
to do
Yeah.
that. So
I like that
100%
take.
agree with Jake. Treat the others with respect, but at the end of the day, if you choose not to shake the hand, or if you choose not to say good game at the moment, there's been times where I didn't say good game, and then I went up to the person 2 rounds later and said, hey, that was really good games, you played really well. And I shook the person's hand, and that person was even more appreciative that I did that, because that meant more than me just doing the automatic, yep, good game, whatever the case may be. So definitely really good
But
stuff.
that's like an emotionally like manipulative behavior, right?
What is?
I guess this is like
No,
a
it's
really,
not. He just
really
needed
deep.
2 rounds to cool off.
No,
Yeah,
it wasn't
but like
about a
he
cool-off, it was
withheld
just-
the
yeah.
handshake.
Oh, yeah.
He withheld the handshake from his opponent, and his opponent had to like perceive that maybe they felt like maybe they were slighted, or like Gerard
it's-
felt slighted by them.
all right, people are gathering kindling around the stake right
Yeah,
now.
that
before
doesn't make
before they
sense.
put any of us on it, let's end this show.
Kevin, I have
all
no
right, we
clue
have a
what you're talking
giveaway
about.
to end this one.
I
I'm
looked at
sorry.
you. I
I'm
gave you a
sorry.
chance to cut me off before I started.
I know, but
That's
then
not
I
how
saw where
cutting
it
you
was
off
going,
works.
and I just, you know, that's. We've got a giveaway, and this is
Yeah.
a big giveaway. We're giving away
This is a big
a
giveaway.
box of Modern Masters 25. So
Okay.
whoever wins this, your week will have gotten dramatically better.
Yeah.
I hope that you're already having a good week, but if you're having a bad week, this is going to turn it around. This is going to turn it into a
If you
good
did
week.
not comment yet, I believe you have to comment, and we're going to randomize it probably within about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So this is your last chance. Give a shout out to
We'll
the Bearded
account for
Dragon.
Twitch
Let's
delay.
see
We'll
who
give you
it
15
is.
seconds.
Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? All right, we got it. All right, so Undead Jeebus. That's spelled UNDEADJEBUS. Is winning a box of Modern Masters 25.
Wow, really good.
Now, I've heard from people that this box has the potential to have multiple copies of Foil Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Well, but it
the
doesn't matter.
potential.
It doesn't matter if you listen. But at the end of the day, and this is from the honest of my heart and everything, you know, with the handshake thing, with everything. If you do open those Foil Jace the Mind Sculptors, the first thing you should do, not shake your opponent's hand, but go to your local store and ask if you could trade it for a regular Search for Escante.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Then follow me on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then
All
follow
right,
Kevin on
everybody.
Twitter, yeah.
I'm
Everybody
Jacob
just
Van
clapping.
Lunen. For Kevin Jones,
Yeah.
Brad Bonin, and Gerard Fabiano, this was Passing Priority. Thanks for joining us, and have a great